Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Melissa Melton. The date is Monday, September 10th, 2012, and here's a look at what we have coming up.
Tonight, Melissa Melton sits down with Lenore Skenazy of FreeRangeKids.com to explore why some people believe letting your kids play outside by themselves is a crime. Then, our government is hoarding ammunition like it's planning for war, but a man can't even buy a few boxes of ammo without being investigated by local police. Plus, we break down the real unemployment numbers and massive censorship at CNN is brought to light. All this and more coming up on the Infowars Nightly News.
Our first story tonight, a man is being investigated by police for buying a couple of boxes of ammunition at his local gun shop. Apparently, Brian Loftus was purchasing a few boxes of ammunition when a concerned customer called the police and reported him to make sure he wasn't, quote, going to do something crazy. After police left Brian Loftus's residence, he put up this video on YouTube.
As someone that has sworn an oath to defend the Constitution like I have, and these officers have, they have to wonder, how many people are they going to call? They're going to call their brother-in-law next time he goes to buy some ammunition? Or their brother or sister or son? I mean, where does it end? We're supposedly in a free country, and I've committed no crime and have no record. And, I shoot that amount of ammunition on a good weekend at the range, so why are they calling me to make sure that I'm not going to do something crazy?
So this is just one more example of how Americans are being intimidated out of using their Second Amendment rights. You can't even go into a gun store and buy a few boxes of ammunition without somebody tattling on you to the police that you might do something crazy. However, your government can buy billions of bullets, spend your money to do it, black out the information on the purchase orders, and then never even tell you why. So you're not supposed to suspect your government when it buys billions of bullets. That's not a terrorist act. You're supposed to suspect the guy down the street when he buys a couple of boxes for shooting off at a firing range. And this just goes to show you how they're trying to perpetuate this idea that we're all terrorists, every single one of us. And that actually goes into our next story. The FBI has begun installation of a $1 billion face recognition software across America that will apparently archive and accumulate information about each and every American at a cost of $1 billion. The Next Generation Identification Program is implementing this intelligence database in unidentified locales across the country, and the mission is to reduce terrorist and criminal activities. And it says here that they are able to provide services to enhance interoperability between stakeholders at all levels of government, local, state, and federal, and international partners. So that sounds fun. And apparently this program will be in full swing in only 2 years when they plan to have 14 million photographs of people. So they're going to be having 14 million photographs in this giant police state grid, and they're going to be sharing that everywhere, local, state, federal, and all across the world. So the government wants to perpetuate this idea that anybody can be a terrorist, we're all terrorists, when if you actually look behind it at the real truth, every single terrorist attack has pretty much been perpetuated by our government. So if anything, they're the terrorists, not us. And people are starting to wake up to this fact. And that actually takes us into our next story here. President of Italy's Supreme Court to refer 9/11 crimes to International Criminal Court. Ferdinando Impassimato is the honorary president of the Supreme Court of Italy, but he's also a member of Lawyers for 9/11 Truth. And he has now stated publicly that he believes that 9/11 is a false flag terror attack, and he's announced officially that he's going to recommend it to the International Criminal Court to hold a criminal trial on 9/11. And he states in here that former head of Italian counterintelligence, former Italian prime ministers, and Italian judges have all admitted that terrorist attacks in Italy and other European countries in the 50s were carried out with NATO and the help of the Pentagon and CIA. And he believes that 9/11 was, again, one of those attacks. And so he's going to go ahead and turn that in. And I think that's a good on all of us. Everybody who said 9/11 was an inside job, all of us who have been pioneering for truth on this, who didn't take the official story at its word, who knew there was something more to it, who knew that Building 7 didn't just blow itself up. This is a victory right here. He's going to take this to International Criminal Court, and I hope we get at least some semblance of justice. Judge Imposamato is just the latest in a string of high-profile people in high government positions to come forward and openly admit on record that they believe that 9/11 was an inside job. And you know, with the anniversary of 9/11 coming up tomorrow, the mainstream media is just going to continue to sell you this idea, as they have for the last 10 years, that there's terrorists hiding under every rock, that we all need to live in fear constantly every day, that the TSA needs to grope our children at the airport, and that we can't leave our house without being afraid that another terrorist might attack us, even though we know on record that our government funds al-Qaeda. And basically the bottom line is this was a false flag attack. It was orchestrated by our government, the whole entire war on terror, just to strip us of our rights and freedoms so they can preemptively attack other countries for empire building. So now we're going to move on to a special report from Aaron Dykes, who traveled to Germany, the birthplace of the Illuminati. And the amount of symbolism embedded in that society will astound you. We go now to that report.
The Illuminati does exist. The secret society is so notorious that many have assumed it resides only in legend and myth. But it was in fact founded on May 1st, 1776 in the heart of Bavaria, Germany.
Aaron Dykes here for Infowars.com in Bavaria, Germany, where in Ingolstadt in 1776, Professor Adam Weishaupt founded the Illuminati right here at this university.
And we are, as a people, opposed to secret societies, the secret oaths, and the secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of election.
We'd like to show the historic background of the original Illuminati. It was here in Ingolstadt 1776 when Adam Weishaupt founded the original Bavarian Illuminati, a secret order he founded here around the University of Ingolstadt. And in the beginning it was a pure opposition against the powerful Jesuits. They had a very strong, a very important role here at the Ingolstadt University. Of course, they were trying to keep the power for the church. They were trying to avoid the modern science. They didn't allow the modern science to be taught at the Ingolstadt University.
The original documents of the Illuminati are preserved at the State Museum.
Oh, look, Aaron. Toten Maske von Johann Adam Weishaupt. It's the death mask.
Adam Weishaupt's role in forming the Illuminati inside the city of Ingolstadt in Bavaria, Germany, cannot be disputed.
We're overlooking a model of the old city of Ingolstadt. Professor Adam Weishaupt wanted to use his secret society to overthrow existing religions and all existing governments, especially monarchies. Instead, he wanted the learned men of universities, using the pagan values of the old system passed down from societies like Egypt and Babylon, to rule the world instead of the oppressive religious regimes and the oppressive monarchies that were in existence in Europe at the time. It was not through armies and force and numbers that Adam Weishaupt hoped to take over the existing governments and change them. Instead, he used his Illuminati secret society to infiltrate the existing structures of government and take them over from within. His attempt to create a new world order by deception and overthrow all existing governments and religions.
Behind the scenes, powerful people like Mayor Amschel Rothschild were involved in founding the Bavarian Illuminati, while important titled and lettered men composed its membership. It claimed to work in secret only because it couldn't work out in the open. The Bavarian Illuminati used Freemasonry and other competing secret society lodges as an engine to conceal its inner membership and project its agenda into already powerful circles. Degrees of the Illuminati structure were adopted into many Masonic traditions, creating an effective venue for recruitment and control. Weishaupt himself took over key lodges in neighboring Munich and other parts of Bavaria. making the Lodge St. Theodore the de facto headquarters of the Illuminati. From that point, membership swelled and the group's allies spread across Europe. I'm standing in the old city of Munich, not far from where Adam Weishaupt's headquarters for the Illuminati was found. It was the Lodge Theodore, also known as the Lodge St. Theodore Albon Council. Now that lodge is nowhere to be found on the internet, although we know it's here somewhere in the old city. A lot of that old city was destroyed in World War II, but very suggestive is the church behind me that bears the all-seeing eye atop of it, the blazing emblem of the all-seeing eye with the triangle. By 1784, the Bavarian Illuminati had officially been exposed. The member list and the agenda had been found on a messenger killed when he was struck by lightning, and the monarchs in Bavaria had the list and shared it with other monarchs. The ruler of Bavaria, Karl Theodor, outlawed the secret society, banished Adam Weishaupt, and the other leaders scattered. Weishaupt himself avoided persecution under the protection to the end of his life by fellow Illuminist Duke Ernst of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Second in command to the Illuminati, Adolf Freiherr von Carnegie ostensibly disbanded the group known internally as those whose name had been cursed by posterity. The Illuminati was officially over in 1785, and Carnegie stepped down from his position. However, historians have conclusively found that von Carnegie simply revived the Illuminati under the guise of numerous reading societies, as Weishaupt had originally instructed. Weishaupt told his initiates, quote, "Conceal the very fact of our existence from the profane. If they discover us, conceal our real objective by profession of benevolence. If our real objective is perceived, pretend to disband and relinquish the whole thing, but assume another name and put forward new agents." This plan was carried out with precision. Top brass of the Illuminati, von Carnegie and Johann Joachim Christoph Bode, re-established the revolutionary organization under the guise of publishing houses that pushed for the printing of controversial Enlightenment literature, while operating behind the scenes via a clandestine inner circle that directed the agenda. These reading societies and publishing houses popped up across Europe and America. The German Union Publishing House operated on the Illuminati's home turf, while the Cercle Social, based in Paris, played a critical role in the French Revolution. Their work in France was to be the beginning of a global revolution to take over the entire world. The original Bavarian Illuminati went underground and faded from existence. But the true legacy of the Illuminati continues. It was the embodiment of a working model for secret government, cleverly concealed within existing institutions and perpetuated by the lure of its secret mysteries and ambitious aims. But those occultic religious trappings were just a mask for the real model of infiltration and domination. The real Illuminati continued in other secret groups working under other names. At their core, they were nothing more than private intelligence agencies who carried out their agenda through the positions of power held by their elite membership, bonded.
Isn't it amazing how if you even mention the Illuminati, people call you a conspiracy theorist, and yet there it is, the all-seeing eye embedded everywhere and everything all the time. It's all around us. It's pretty interesting stuff. We now take you to David Ortiz, who's going to talk a little bit about the real unemployment numbers and how politicians even have started hoarding gold.
Thank you, Melissa. Reporting for Infowars Nightly News, I'm David Ortiz. The unemployment numbers have dropped, but is the labor market really getting better? Recently, the U.S. Department of Labor announced that an estimated 96,000 jobs were created in the month of August, and that the unemployment rate dropped from 8.3% to 8.1%. While this news might come as good news for Obama supporters, it is important to note that the U.S. economy must create at least 130,000 jobs per month just to keep up with the number of new people who enter the job market each month. The unemployment numbers also dropped simply because an estimated 368,000 Americans quit looking for work. You see, the U.S. government does not consider you unemployed unless you receive unemployment benefits and tell them that you are continuously looking for work. Had these pool of people done that, this month's unemployment rate would have been 8.4%. According to numerous economists, if you were to also count the number of Americans that are out of work along with those that are working part-time, the number of unemployed Americans would be at least 15%. So obviously the economy is in grave condition, as Bernanke has said, and Obama supporters trying to encourage people that things are okay and that it's all in your imagination is just a flat-out lie. These poor labor stats also come on the heels of recent news that show job creation numbers for July and August had to be slashed by 20,000 for each of those months, at least 20,000 for each of those months. And while President Barack Obama is continuing to tout his economic record and tell the public that things are just dandy and fine, what are leaders in other countries doing? Well, simply investing in gold. Several media outlets report that Russian President Vladimir Putin is diversifying his country's assets out of dollars and euros and purchasing an estimated $500 million worth of gold each month. That's $500 million. Currently, 9% of Russia's reserves are held in gold, but that number is certain to increase. And Russia isn't the only country stockpiling gold. So is India and China, who recently purchased more gold than the entire holdings of the European Central Bank. Here in the United States, gold is selling at over $1,700 an ounce, which is an increase of over $100 an ounce over the past few weeks. So regardless of what these economic projections tell you, the U.S. economy is in free fall and things are sadly in bad shape. And follow what our leaders do. They're purchasing gold, despite the fact that they continue to tell you to invest in Wall Street, and if you don't, you're naive. So let's talk a little bit about freedom here from a man who created many jobs. He certainly was flawed, as we all are, but he did create jobs. Ronald Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same." So we must continue fighting for freedom, and that also includes economic freedom. And now for more news, here is Jakari Jackson, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the corporate whore media.
Thanks, David. Corporate whore media indeed. Prostitutes abound on the major networks, but not this young lady. This is Jakari Jackson reporting for the Infowars Nightly News. Headline: former reporter Amber Lyon exposes massive censorship at CNN. I'll give you a chance to let the shock sink in here. Now, let's give you a little background on this Amber Lyon story. She's a reporter for CNN, obviously. She goes over to Bahrain to report on the protesters being abused and sometimes killed over there. So she gets to Bahrain, she finds out all of her sources have either disappeared or gone missing, gone into hiding. So she gets there, she works the best she can, but she can't really get the story together. She does manage to contact a few protesters, but she's eventually, you know, I guess you would say black-bagged and disappeared by the military. But they say it's all well and good because they'll take her around and they take her to some real trendy places like malls and such to get footage. But she still managed to get, you know, a decent report. So she puts her report up on CNN. This documentary that she was making is a 1 hour, $100,000 documentary. It airs on CNN one time. It never airs on the CNN International channel, just airs on regular old CNN, and we get here in the States one time. And why would they do such a thing? Let's find out in the article. The Amber Lyon story is just the latest in a series of articles that expose the total Joseph Goebbels-like censorship rampant in the mainstream media today. Now, the article goes on to point out censorships such as the New York Times basically regurgitating whatever they're told by Big Brother, and also an NPR reporter walking out because of all the lies and fabrications. And, you know, there's a lot of that going on, but thank you, big corporate media, because you're driving more people to, you know, organizations such as Infowars.com. And speaking of CNN, back in March, I believe it was, our very own Paul Joseph Watson did a story about Syrian Danny. Some of you guys may remember this guy. He's, you know, obviously CNN's correspondent over there in Syria, and he's supposed to be their hard time war correspondent. Ooh, I'm in a battle zone kind of guy. But you'll see in this clip that we're about to show you, he's basically fabricating a war zone. He has some of his friends over on the side popping firecrackers or whatever they're doing, trying to simulate a war zone. So let's take a look at that now.
طلع الكاميرا الكاميرا
Okay, so we see there freedom in the press. Indeed, I guess freedom of the press also includes the freedom to make up the news. You see the guy hopping out the coffin like the Thriller and a bunch of other shenanigans, but hey, I guess that's how they like to do at CNN. Now we'll go now here to a quote from Amber Lyon. It's not the quote of the day, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just as good. I saw firsthand that these regime claims were lies, and I couldn't believe CNN was making me put what I knew to be government lies into my reporting, quote, Amber Lynn. So there you go, Amber Lynn herself, CNN reporter, not a troll, not a plant, somebody who actually worked at CNN, saying, hey, there's, something going on here. Let's continue with the article. In the segment, Lyon interviewed activists as they explicitly described their torture at the hands of the government forces, while family members recounted their relatives' abrupt disappearances. She spoke with government officials justifying the imprisonment of activists. Ms. Lyon actually spoke with somebody who justified her imprisonment, Ms. Lyon's imprisonment. Ms. Lyon and her crew were filming, and they were contacted by government, I don't know if you call them government officials, but guys who come up, they pull up in military vehicles with machine guns, helicopters, black masks. I'm not making this up. This is in her own report. They take her and her crew down to the holding area. They sweat them down for 6 hours or so. Then they release them. But they erase all the footage that they had on them at the time. But the government says, hey, it's no big deal. You don't need that real footage. We'll take you out tomorrow and we'll take you to the mall and wherever else so you can shoot, picnics and all this stuff and not show anything that's real. So, hey, that's Big Brother at its finest, and they'll take care of you over there in Bahrain. Let's continue with the article. And the segment featured harrowing video footage of regime forces shooting unarmed demonstrators, along with the mass arrests of peaceful protesters. In sum, the early 2011 CNN segment on Bahrain presented one of the starkest reports to date of the brutal repression embraced by the U.S.-backed regime. The U.S.-backed regime. Because I guarantee you, if this wasn't U.S.-backed, somebody from CNN would still be over there reporting what's really going on today. So we salute you, Amber Lyon, here from the Infowars crew. You are not a prostitute, like many other people at CNN. So we salute you, and we hope to see more from you in the very near future. God bless you. And if you'd like to see more about Amber Lyon and her trials and tribulations, you can check out this report from The Guardian. Why didn't CNN's international arm air its own documentary about Bahrain's Arab Spring repression? That's a very good question, Mr. Greenwald. And if you'd like to know more, check out The Guardian. All right. Next story. Bombshell. 18 people died of the flu, not 36,000 as claimed by the CDC. Now, this is a very interesting story to me because it wasn't that long ago, probably about a month or so ago, I reported on the cookbook numbers of the swine flu and bird flu epidemics, if you can call it an epidemic. But now it seems that even less people are affected by the flu than I originally thought. So, hey, we learned stuff here, too. Let's take a look at the article. The flu season is approaching, and of course we will see the Centers for Disease Control urge all parents to act like good little robots and have their whole family jabbed with flu shots. So there you go. You get ready. They're going to push it at the schools. If you want to go to school, if you want to play on the basketball team or whatever else, you're going to have this flu shot. That is a lie. You do have waivers. So make sure parents look into that. And even if you really are concerned, if you're on the fence, you don't know whether not to get your kids vaccinated or not, read the inserts. Read up on, what this H1N1 or whatever they're trying to push now will do to your child, what it will do to you. So read up on it, be educated, and make an informed decision as a parent. We'll continue. Now, Peter Dashi, a graduate from MIT, he studied anthropology and science, and this is what he found in his study. Influenza and pneumonia took about 62,000 lives in 2001, 257 the flu, and in only 18 cases was the flu virus positively identified. So there's a lot of speculation about flu, but Mr. Dashi found that only 18 cases could you positively pin it down to the flu. We'll continue. Dashi goes on to mention a 2004 flu vaccine summit held by the CDC and American Medical Association. One of the important speakers at this conference, Glenn Nowak, lectured about generating interest and demand for the flu vaccine. A very interesting tidbit about Mr. Nowak. Among other degrees, he also has a degree in advertising. So he's putting it to good use here. We'll continue in the article. Nowak said this demand occurs when medical experts and public health authorities state concern and alarm and predict dire outcomes and urge influenza vaccinations. There should be continued reports that influenza is causing severe illness and or affecting lots of people, helping foster the perception that many people are susceptible to the bad cases of influenza. So there you go, a marketing guy pushing in his product on you, his product being the flu vaccination. Wow, CDC, you guys have been busy little bees. On a side note, well, I guess it's not really a side note because it also concerns the CDC. Mike Adams did a report this past weekend where he talked about how the CDC is trying to prepare people, of all things, a zombie invasion or attack or whatever you call it. This is not a joke. This is a very real report that Mike Adams did this past weekend. Now, to their credit, the CDC did have a decent job of trying to prepare people for, the supposed zombie attack. They say, hey, stock up on batteries and food and water and clean clothes and all this stuff. But the big oversight that Mike Adams points out is they don't give you any tips on how to prepare yourself as far as protection-wise. Now, if you read the article, Mike Adams says his preferred method of protection is a Borelli 12-gauge shotgun, which, hey, that works for me as well. But, hey, a shotgun may not be for you. I'm not one of those people telling you to go out and buy guns. If you're afraid you're going to shoot yourself or somebody else, don't go buy a gun. Don't go buy a gun because your neighbor got their house broken into. What's going to happen is the pizza man's going to knock on the wrong door and you're going to shoot him in the face. So don't do that. But have something to protect yourself. Don't wait for the National Guard or somebody to come rescue you. Protection for you may be a baseball bat, it may be a can of mace. A can of mace isn't going to stop a zombie. Could be a strategically placed butcher knife. Whatever works for you, go get that. And I'm ranting and rambling, and we have to go to break. So we'll go to break, and we'll come back with Melissa Melton and her interview with Lenore Skenazy, editor of FreakRangeKids.com. And stop by PrisonPlanet.tv, get yourself a membership, or stop by the InfoWarsShop.com. Plenty of great products. We have books, DVDs, hats. We're even working on some jerseys right now, so stay tuned for that. And this is Jakari Jackson for the Infowars Nightly News. Stay tuned.
Alex Jones here with a message to fellow freedom lovers. The prognosis for the entire planetary economic system runs from bad to worse. The globalist model is to shut down societies and starve patriots out until they acquiesce to the global takeover. That's why we've assembled the most vital and important preparedness items at InfoWarsShop.com. These are items that I did research on, that I personally use. We've got the Life Straw, so you can turn fetid water into safe water anywhere you go. The K-Tor hand crank generator to charge up key equipment during power outages or out in the field. Strategic Relocation, 3rd edition by Joel Skousen. When Disaster Strikes by Matthew Stein. ThyroSafe, used by Homeland Security to protect yourself during any radiological event. Hand crank shortwave AM/FM radios. Everything that we've researched and found to be the best is available at InfoWarsShop.com, and your purchase makes our InfoWar possible. We're getting prepared. Are you? InfoWarsShop.com. Sick of the globalist eugenicist control freaks adding poison to your water and laughing as you get sick and die? Start purifying your water with ProPure. My friends, I've done a lot of research, and the best gravity filter out there, bar none, is ProPure, and it's available discounted at Infowars.com. Its filters are silver impregnated to prevent bacterial growth. There's no priming required. It's NSF 42 certified. Optional fluoride filters can reduce fluoride up to 95%. Easy to set up and use. Doesn't require electricity. Purify water from lakes, streams, ponds, and wells. This filter system leaves in beneficial minerals, which is key. Save money by not buying bottled water and avoid BPA that leaches from the plastic. ProPure is the best gravity-fed filter out there. It's what my family uses. Infowars.com already has the lowest price on ProPure. But if you add the promo code WATER at checkout, you get an additional 10% off at Infowars.com. You can also call to order 888-253-3139.
Welcome back to Infowars Nightly News. I'm Melissa Melton. And, you know, we're creating a society of perpetual fear. And it extends to all levels, right down to our children. When we can't even allow them to play outside in our own front yard by themselves without having to worry that our neighbors might call CPS on us for neglect because we aren't there supervising their every move. And with more on this, we're going to turn to Lenore Skenazy, founder of freerangekids.com, who actually dared to allow her own son to ride the subway all by himself. So, for starters, Lenore, why don't you tell us what prompted you to start freerangekids.com?
I began it when I had let my 9-year-old ride the subway by himself. And I'm a newspaper reporter, so I wrote a little column about it, explaining that I thought he was ready for it. I trusted him in the big world. I didn't think that he was going to be kidnapped. I didn't give him a cell phone. And once that article ran, I was immediately in the public eye being castigated as America's worst mom because I hadn't worried enough. And wouldn't I have felt terrible if something bad happened to him? Yes. So I started my blog that weekend after the whole story blew up to explain I love safety. I believe in helmets and car seats and mouth guards when they're playing football. I just don't believe they need a security detail every time they leave the home. And that's been a radical assumption for the last 4 years that has just brought me to you. The idea that I really think that you can trust the world and you can trust your kids in it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, with stranger danger, the statistics show that it was terribly harmful, actually, because most child abductions actually occur from someone the child knows, not from a stranger. It's very rare, actually.
Stranger abductions are the rarest of crimes, and they say that over 90% of the crimes against children are committed by people they know, people that they're close to. So when we're telling kids to beware of strangers and actually locking them inside with, God forbid, their rotten relatives, I mean, it's almost like we've gotten it completely wrong. But people somehow feel compelled to distrust the outside world. The crime rate now is lower than when most of today's parents were playing outside. It's lower than it was, FBI statistics, than the 70s, 80s, or 90s. And so if your parents let you play outside, why wouldn't you let your kids play outside? It's this stranger danger thing that's almost been foisted upon us. And then it builds upon itself because then parents are afraid to let their children outside, and then...
Oh, yes. You've got neighbors, right? You've got your neighbors calling the police on people for letting their kids play unattended in their own front yards, I read. So.
Oh, my gosh, so many times. There's parents who've been called by the police. There was one guy who let his children play in a park. I think ages 9 and 6 or 10 and 6, something like that, for less than 2 hours. And he was picked up by the police and taken in as a negligent parent. I hear about people having this happen to them, I'd say at least once a week. And it's very disturbing because the reason they're called at all, the reason their neighbors don't, the reason the neighbors pick up the phone to report them is because it is so unusual to see a child outside. That in itself makes them think that, well, the child must have just wandered out there. The parents must have no idea. They must be high on drugs. Why would anybody let their child go? And then the minute the parents are swept into the Child Protective Services Department, well, then it's sort of Kafkaesque because it's you're saying, I don't think my children were in danger, versus perhaps somebody else who is a little more stranger danger oriented saying, well, you might not think so, but they were in danger. And then you say, like me, no, look at the crime statistics are down. And they say, are you kidding? Don't you watch Nancy Grace? Children are off the street every day. And so
exactly.
It's two perceptions of the world, and yours as the parent is discounted, and theirs as the authority has the authority.
So they need to rely on the state. Well, what do you think this is maybe doing to our society, to have this perpetual state of fear we're raising these children in, to be afraid of everything all the time? I mean, you've got that in school, too, with the RFID tracking chips. And
yeah, so many different things are becoming normal now. I had one lady write to me about the way that she has to sign her children in and out of vacation Bible school. I don't know why she was writing to me here at the end of the summer, but she was. And she was saying that she has to go in now and she has to have the child with her, and she has to sign a form to get into the school, and they have to check the form against her license to make sure she's not forging her own signature. And then she has to be there in the presence of the guard while they put a sticker on the child. And then they have to take the child with the mom and deposit each child with the mom into each of the different rooms. And then get this, the older boys at the school, she has boys who are 12 and 15, are still not allowed to walk to the bathroom by themselves.
By themselves.
And anytime anybody goes to the bathroom, it can't be with just one adult because, of course, that adult could rape them. So it has to be two adults, so they're each keeping track of the other one, not molesting or grooming the child as they go to the bathroom. But because her children are older, 12 and 15, when those boys get to the bathroom, if there's a younger kid in the bathroom, they're not allowed in.
They're not allowed to go in it.
Not allowed in. So can you imagine what this is doing to a boy's head? On the one hand, he's a baby who needs two adults walking him down the hall to the bathroom. I mean, I would be afraid. I would feel embarrassed. They know I got to go again. Is it number one or number two? Nobody wants to be around people as they're going to the bathroom. But then the minute they get to the bathroom, they're suspected of being child molesters. I mean, I think that would do a number on my head.
For sure. And I mean, and you even have in schools, it's almost contrary because it's like they're going to create this fearful environment all the time. But then on the other hand, you've also got schools, whole districts where they've outlawed use of red pen on a piece of paper because if we mark a kid with a red pen, it can damage them for life. I mean, it's ironic. It makes no sense.
Oh, it's so true because the idea behind all of these, actually, if you look like what's the bedrock? The bedrock is a disbelief in people, in society, and in our own kids. I mean, if you think that you have to walk your kid everywhere, walk them to school, you can't show them red ink because that will force them to crumble. And if they walk to school, they would either get lost or they would get kidnapped. And once they're at school, you can't give them a 0 because that would cause their self-esteem to crumble. I mean, it's so interesting that all the things that every generation until now has been allowed and even expected to do, lose at a sport and not get a trophy, you know,
exactly,
get lost and find your way back home, do your own homework, make your own lunch, use a knife. There's a Cub Scout troop where the leader, the troop leader, showed the kids how to whittle. You know, this is a knife, this is a stick, this is how you whittle. And then he handed each child a potato peeler.
Nice.
Which you'd think would be so much harder. It would end up with a lot of scrapes. But the point is, we're not trusting our kids with any of the
anything.
Literally or figuratively of growing up. We're treating them like perpetual babies, always in danger. And then if you're a person who says, you know, I don't think my kid is in constant danger, I'm going to let him play. I'm going to let him play soccer in the street and get out of the street when a car comes. Well, you're the negligent parent.
And then they wind up in a system that's even more dangerous for them, CPS.
Right. And also, I mean, does CPS love my children more than me? I don't think so. I think parents are really good at gauging, like, I think my kid is ready to walk to school. I think my kid is ready to stay at home and babysit. There was a lady in, Montana, who had a 12-year-old child and 2 younger kids. And the 12-year-old wanted to go to the mall with her other 12-year-old friend. And the mom said, okay, but you have to take the little kids with you because I'm not just sitting home with them today, or she had work to do or whatever. So the older kids who had taken babysitting classes and wanted to go to the mall took the children who I think were 8, 7, and 3. 3-year-old was in a stroller. Well, while the 12-year-olds were taking a couple minutes to try on a couple of shirts at one of the department stores while the other 3 were waiting, some people behind the makeup counter thought, oh my God, those children are abandoned. And they called security, and security came, and by then the 12-year-olds were out, and they said, you've been negligent, and they called the children in, they called the mother, and they arrested the mom for sending the 12-year-olds to the mall because the mom believed that the 12-year-olds would be supervisory enough and that the children would be safe enough, which was true. And I don't think that just because you've gone into a dressing room for a couple of minutes in a public place that somebody's going to come in and steal 3 children out from the makeup ladies, out from under the makeup lady's eyes. But that's the kind of mentality we have now. You go immediately, if you're in the, I feel like some people go immediately to the worst case scenario. It's what I call worst first thinking, coming up with the worst thing that could possibly happen first in your mind and proceeding as if it's likely to happen. So if it was likely that those 3 children were going to be kidnapped in broad daylight, 3 at a time, out from a public place, well, then I guess those girls were wrong to try on a shirt. But if you're like me and you say, what are the chances? Kidnapping of a stranger is very rare in a public place of 3 children with another 2 children nearby. Everybody can scream.
Oh, yeah.
There's clerks all around. It's not going to happen, but you're not allowed to think logically. You're supposed to be thinking of the worst thing first. And I think the reason we do get that to become our habit is because that's all you see on TV. You see Nancy Grace.
You're inundated with it all the time. Exactly. I mean, I've been ostracized before in a restaurant for letting my daughter, when she was like 11, go to the bathroom by herself. And I could see the bathroom door from the table I was sitting at. And I had an elderly woman come up to me and say, aren't you worried that something bad is going to happen to her in the bathroom? And I'm thinking, I can see the door from here, And then my daughter was concerned because of her saying that. So she's taking on that fear, and it just multiplies.
It does. And then the next time you're going to let her go, you're going to be thinking of 2 things. One is, oh, was that lady right? Because a seed has been planted. And 2, what if some lady like that calls the cops and says, this mother doesn't care? Or what if, you're at a mall. What if the mall cop comes and it's not Paul Blart? And he says, what are you doing letting them? I did a TV show called World's Worst Mom, which didn't end up airing in America. But I dealt with very, very worrisome parents, sort of the way the super nanny dealt with out-of-control kids. I dealt with out-of-control, fear-filled parents. And one of them wouldn't let her 13-year-old boy go to the bathroom by himself.
Oh, wow.
She dragged him into the ladies' room with her. And what I had
You got to think what that's going to do to him instead. I mean, geez.
The thing about these kids, there are parents who wouldn't let them walk to school past 6 houses or wouldn't let him go to the bathroom by himself. There was a mom who fed her 10-year-old because she didn't want him using a knife because he could hurt himself. And then besides, it's so much easier. Why don't I just feed you? And the thing about those kids is I'm not sure they're going to be permanently damaged. At some point, they will go off to college or their life and they will cut their food and they will go to the bathroom and mom won't be there. The thing is that while they're growing up that way, they don't want to upset their mom. They realize their mom is very worried for them. So they sort of live in enforced captivity. And what's sad about our society is how much every day we add to that captivity and say it's for the sake of our children.
Of our safety, exactly.
Well, it's for the sake of our nerves, but I don't think it's for the sake of our children.
Well, you had mentioned earlier you're involved in some controversy. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So tomorrow I think I'll be in the newspapers because I'm starting a class on Wednesday here in New York City. Wednesday, September 12th. Feel free to come if you're around. It's a new class. It's in Central Park. It's for children ages 8 to 18, and it's called I Won't Supervise Your Kids. And that's it. They gather together at one spot, and I say hi to them, and I have them introduce each other. And I collect checks from their parents for $350 because this is a very valuable class. And I want people to realize it because what the kids then get is nobody else watching them. No parents, no coach, no teacher. They have to figure out what to do. They have to figure out a game to play. They have to decide the rules. They have to make the teams fair. And it's all these things that I know my kids are not even particularly good at. It's the work of childhood that we've taken away from them, again, in our fear, like, oh, they can't handle being by themselves.
They might get common sense, though.
They might grow up a little. They might make the teams fair. They might get a little socialization. They might have to wait their turn instead of me, the mom, saying, oh, take another, because I don't care if I ever get to bat. So I just keep giving them the pitches. Well, not with kids. Kids say, go to the back of the line. That was 3 strikes. Go to the back of the line. And when the kids say that, this is a chance for the kid who just struck out to either have a tantrum and be a total baby and no longer play, or pull himself together and play by the rules. And that's how kids get socialized. That's how they get mature. That's how they self-regulate. They have to internalize it some way, and the best way is through play and play with other kids. And that's something we've actually taken out of their lives and replaced with, Kumon and classes and ballet and soccer and Mandarin. And my kids have done a lot of those too. And some of them I think have been very valuable, some absolutely not.
But on a basic level.
But on a basic level, they deserve some free time when they figure out who they are, what interests them, and how to be around other kids and how to organize their time, which is something we've taken away in our fear that if we leave them alone, they'll be kidnapped or bored or frustrated or, gosh, nobody's going to give them a trophy.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today, Lenore?
Just my plea, I think I'm speaking to the right audience here, to resist making helicopter parenting the law of the land. That's really the thing that disturbs me in terms of the legal aspect of free-range parenting. A lot of states have passed laws that don't allow you to let your kids wait in the car if you're going in to pick up the dry cleaning.
Oh, yes.
Or if you're going in just to get the pizza. And if that's all based on the wrong assumption that that's how children die. Actually, the sad fact of the matter is some children do die every year in cars because their parents forget them. And it's generally because they park the car and they've gone to work and they forgot that the baby who is silent and asleep in the backwards facing car seat is there. But if you're going in just to get the dry cleaning, you're not going to spend the whole day.
Oh, yeah, and those are lumped in all together, so.
They're lumped in all together, and it's not making children any safer, but it is harassing parents, giving parents tickets, giving them, warnings.
And just perpetuating that fear.
Right, and when things like that become the law of the land, if you're considered negligent for letting your kids play on the sidewalk, play in your front lawn, go to the park by themselves, have a lemonade stand, that's a country that is not free for parents and is not free for kids. So if there's any way to actively fight the institutionalization of helicopter parenting, join me.
Thanks for talking to us again, Lenore. I hope to talk to you again in the future. And that about wraps it up for tonight's edition of the Infowars Nightly News. If you like being able to receive unfiltered, uncensored information that the mainstream media won't be talking about, please don't hesitate to go to prisonplanet.tv, where you can sign up for a 15-day free trial, and one membership actually allows 6 people to log in. And remember, let your kids play outside, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central.